Hello and welcome to episode 250 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan, as always joined by Evan Silva. And today is a beautiful day because Evan is back from his brother's wedding. Evan, without you last weekend, I had my stone cold worst day ever in DFS.
I saw that, bro. Sorry.
I think we both know though, there's only one man to blame here, and it is, of course, Drew Silva. How was the wedding? Yep. How's it going? How was the wedding?
It was awesome. It was just like a big party. It was real casual. Everybody had a great time. The bride got up at the end and sang Alanis Morissette, "You Ought to Know," like karaoke. Just absolutely crushed it. That was a great cat to the night. But it's good to be back. You know, my other brothers better not be getting married anytime soon because I'm not doing that shit again. I mean, I've had to like pull back-to-back all-nighters just to get, figure out all the stuff that happened on Sunday. But no, it was a great time. I'm glad I did it. I'm sorry that I was unavailable, but we're not doing that again. I can promise you that.
Okay, good. On today's show, and each Tuesday this season, Evan and I are going to go team by team, highlighting the most important things we saw from a fantasy perspective and key takeaways. I think it's a really useful exercise. Hope you guys are finding value in these podcasts. Before we get to that, two things. First, if you have not subscribed to our in-season package yet, you are missing 95% of the content we put out each week. Silva's matchups, our projections, ownership projections, all our shows, premium pods. Hermers-Meyer's Air Yards by Low model makes its debut this week as the model needed 2 weeks to run. We do have weekly and monthly options up on the site right now. Check it out on the subscribe page. Second, this show is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks.com. You guys know me. You know I love player props. PrizePicks is essentially a DFS platform that specializes in player props. If you're in a state like New York or California or Texas or a bunch of other states without a legal sports book, PrizePicks is legal and regulated. We know PrizePicks. We know props are fun. We know they are beatable. We're also posting a table each week to compare our projections with PrizePicks props lines to give you guys a look at where we stand on their props. If you want to give them a try this week, they have a 100% instant sign-up bonus up to $100. Use promo code ETR to get the best deal, or use the link in the show notes. Again, promo code ETR at prizepicks.com for the instant deposit bonus and the best deal. Evan, let's get into it here with the NFC, and we'll start with the Arizona Cardinals. Really encouraging from Rondale. I mean, Rondale was one of the guys we were on most heading into the season for season long as kind of a flyer turned 10th round pick. In week one, he only ran a route on 38% of Kyler dropbacks, but in week two, he earned more because he played so well in week one. In week two, he ran a route on 58% of Kyler dropbacks. He's turned 13 targets this year into 11 182-1. Of course, the dust ball, AJ Green, every down player, still somehow 12 targets and only 569-1. What'd you see out of Rondale? What'd you see out of the Arizona Cardinals?
Yeah, I mean, Rondale already leads the Cardinals in targets, receptions, receiving yards, I believe first down catches as well. He's the number 2 playmaker behind DeAndre Hopkins that the Cardinals needed, and that came in especially handy against Minnesota because, DeAndre Hopkins got stuck on Patrick Peterson all game. And, this is the time of year that Patrick Peterson is going to be at his best. He'll probably fade as the season progresses. But he did a good job against DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins does not move in the Cardinals' air raid or horizontal raid or whatever you want to call it style of offense. So he's easy for Patrick Peterson to pick off. But Rondale Moore is not playing in the slot and then making that big play. Was it like a 77-yard touchdown down the football field? Electrifying after the catch. He is still technically 4th in the pecking order, though, in terms of snaps and routes run behind Kirk, AJ Green, and DeAndre Hopkins. So I would anticipate some ups and downs going forward. There's going to be some inconsistency mixed in, but I mean, right now I think he's a wide receiver 3/flex starter going up against the Jaguars in week 3. It's going to be a great matchup. Kyler Murray, though, I think he's the early favorite for NFL MVP, for fantasy MVP, because through 2 weeks, he's got 10 more fantasy points than any other quarterback in the league. Tom Brady is number 2 with 9 touchdown passes. He still is 10 points behind Kyler Murray. Huge difference maker, huge swing pick early in the season.
Oh, man, Kyler is just going absolutely ham out there. I would note, though, I have a bet on DeAndre Hopkins under receiving yards for the entire season. And part of the thesis of that was Rondale was going to eat into it. Chase Edmonds was going to eat into it. Chase Edmonds is racking up a bunch of targets as well. AJ Green will be in there to eat into it a little bit. So I feel good about that. But yeah, I mean, certainly not panicking on DeAndre Hopkins, but they just have a lot of guys they can throw to right now with Christian Kirk back playing well, Rondale playing well, and Chase Edmonds such a big part of the pass game also. Let's go to the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, going down to Tampa is a really tough spot for anyone, but the Falcons were in the game. I mean, they had a chance to win like early in the fourth quarter. I think they were only down by 3 points. And then Matt Ryan throws a couple late pick sixes, and then the final score looks really, really ugly. As expected, though, nice bounce back for Kyle Pitts. I mean, with the usage that he's getting, Kyle Pitts is going to have a very, very strong year at the tight end position. I think what people want to know now, Evan, is this Cordell Patterson versus Mike Davis thing, because it was really dangerous to go into the year assuming Mike Davis was going to get all the work, and that's why you were taking him in the fourth, fifth round. But as we see, that's not always how it shakes out, and Cordell Patterson is playing like a traditional running back role, and he's really involved around the goal line. What do you see out of Atlanta and the running back situation?
Well, if you were taking Mike Davis in the fourth round, you should lose your fantasy license and not be able to play for the rest of your life. But I mean, I thought that he made sense as like a 6th round pick. It's just that he is, a replacement level back. I mean, that's just who he is. But he is also still heavily involved in the passing game. I mean, he's got a lead on Cordell Patterson. I know that Cordell Patterson has made some big plays. He scored a couple touchdowns last week, and he's been a good change of pace back. I mean, it's still Mike Davis in the lead. It's just that this offense hasn't been very good in totality. And I mean, I think that there should be concern about Matt Ryan. Clearly, the Falcons are bottom 5 in air yards so far as a team. And that is killing Calvin Ridley, who he had a fine week 2. But, we had much higher hopes for him making plays down the football field. I wonder if it's because Arthur Smith does not trust, especially the interior of Atlanta's offensive line, and or because Matt Ryan is starting to fall down the cliff a little bit. I mean, I think that there are significant concerns with this offense. Leone and I got asked, would you rather have Cooper Kupp or Calvin Ridley going forward? He said Calvin Ridley. I said it is fine if you selected Cooper Kupp. They're really riffing with Matthew Stafford. We'll talk about that when we get to the Rams. But I don't know. I mean, do you think that there's light at the end of the tunnel here for Atlanta's passing game?
I thought the only way that Pitts and Ridley would fail this year is if 36-year-old Matt Ryan was off the edge of a cliff, and also Arthur Smith was kind of a mirage. So far, it doesn't look good on either count. Schedule, though, does open up a little bit. I think they played the Giants this week. Yeah, they play the Giants this week. Then Washington football team, Jets, Dolphins, Panthers. They get the Cowboys. They get the Jaguars at some point. They're going to be big games, I think, for Ryan and Ridley still. So I'm okay. I still prefer Ridley over Pitts, but I hear you, and we'll get to that when we get to
Ridley over Kupp.
But we'll get to that when we get to the.
You guys just love the priors, don't you? Just love it.
I know. I should note Russell Gage hurt his ankle in this game. Don't think it makes too big of a difference, but just want to note Russell Gage, I think, will end up questionable for week 3. Carolina Panthers, DJ Moore is balling, man. And Robbie is kind of back to being this deep guy, and DJ Moore is eating it up. And I was so tilted. I had these bets on Terrace Marshall overs. Terrace Marshall over 2.5 catches, which he barely hit. He had 3 catches. And then Terrace Marshall over on yards, which he didn't get to. Brendan Zystra comes in and steals 3 targets on just 8 routes. Still 24 routes run for Terrace Marshall is good. I mean, I tweeted it, man. I know I've been talking about this all offseason. Sam Darnold, writing him off just because he was bad on the Jets was a mistake. I mean, dude is playing well. And I don't know if it's going to sustain. I think just when you have the weapons that this team has and you have Joe Brady, Sam Darnold's going to continue to play well. So I'm really optimistic about Carolina in general. What do you see out of another really impressive win for Carolina?
Yeah, Sam Darnold's averaging 8 yards per pass attempt. During his 3-year career with the Jets, he averaged 6.6. So he's taken a really big step up here. Much better orchestrated offense under Joe Brady as compared to Adam Gase. The weapons are big time in Carolina. I actually think that Robbie Anderson is a buy low right now. I think that we should see some evening out between him and DJ Moore going forward. You want to talk about a gorgeous going forward schedule. We talked about how Sam Darnold might be. I went on the Around the NFL podcast, and I tried to give him for their fantasy bonanza or whatever. And I tried to give him a really good sleeper. And I gave him Sam Darnold.
Yes.
And then Rosenthal just shit all over me. He was like, no way, And then he named some terrible quarterback that, probably isn't even starting as his retort. But Darnold is off to a really hot start. He's a top 12 fantasy quarterback through 2 weeks. The going forward schedule: Houston, Dallas, Philly, Minnesota, Giants, Falcons. That's weeks 3 through 8. So no, this train is not stopping anytime soon. Rosenthal's taking it right down the throat.
I love it. Oh, God. All right. Speaking of quarterback situations, let's get to the Bears because we never want to celebrate.
I wanted to mention one more thing. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm all jazzed up because, I didn't get to do this stuff for the last couple of days because I was at this damn wedding. But Panthers right now, I just mentioned their schedule. They are plus 130 to make the playoffs on DraftKings. I think that's a pretty good bet. They can rush the passer. Their passing game is really clicking. They've been able to overcome what I think, is not the most talented offensive line so far, and then this schedule. So I think plus 130, I really like them to make the playoffs.
Agree. Yeah, I would shop that price. Maybe we can find better somewhere else, but that sounds like a pretty good bet to me as well. Speaking of quarterbacks, Chicago Bears, and we never want to celebrate anyone getting hurt, but Andy Dalton hurt his knee. I don't think he's going to be able to play in week 3, so it looks like Justin Fields' season. Justin Fields came in for 42 snaps against the Bengals in week 2, only ran 10 times for 31 yards, but if you combine his regular season rushing with his preseason rushing, that's 134 snaps, 21 carries, 123 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, Justin Fields was looking to run far more than Trey Lance was in the preseason. We talked about that leading up to the season. I'm excited about Justin Fields. It's not the softest landing spot to face the Browns. I believe that game is in Cleveland, to face the Browns in your first career NFL start. But, I mean, Tyrod was ripping up the Browns for a little bit there before he got hurt in week 2. It's not an impenetrable defense. What do you think about Justin Fields? How excited would you be to start him, I guess, in season long this week?
Yeah, and then after that, it is at home against the Lions. So, I have Justin Fields on one of my main event teams. We started out with Trevor Lawrence as our paper over quarterback. So we're really, really excited to move on to Justin Fields. And I mean, I'll be starting him, right away, week 3 at Cleveland. I know it's not the easiest matchup, but this dude is going to run. I think he might even have some fan support. He's beloved at Ohio State in Cleveland, but really, really eyeballing that week 4 game against Detroit. I think that could be his eruption spot.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy for Justin Fields to have like Jalen Hurts type games. Like Jalen Hurts had that really nice 3-game stretch.
He's a better passer than Jalen Hurts too.
Yep, for sure. Dallas, I didn't think they'd do it, man. And we talked about it. I didn't think they'd do it. Part of the thesis on Ezekiel Elliott being a top 5 or top 6 overall pick or whatever was that Dallas can't give this guy a 6-year, $90 million contract and then have him lose snaps to a 4th-round rookie. Credit to Dallas. They're doing it, man. I mean, Tony Pollard's just so much better than Zeke. They almost have no choice but to get Tony Pollard out there a lot. Zeke only had 55% of the running back carries in that game, only 40% of the running back targets against the Chargers. And Pollard just looks shot out of an absolute cannon. People now want to know what to do. They have both. Should they start both? Should they start just Pollard? Should they start just Zeke? How are you looking at the running back situation for Dallas?
No, yeah, and we got a question on Twitter today. Can you start them together? You absolutely can start them together, especially in games where the script profiles as, the Cowboys are going to have a lead and be able to dial up a lot of touches for both of these guys. They're going to just keep both these guys involved. And that's exactly what the coaching has been really promising from Dallas so far. In week 1, they've done such a good job of attacking weaknesses and circumventing the strengths of defenses. In week 1, they threw the heck out of the ball against Tampa Bay, didn't even try to run it up the gut against Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh. And then in week 2, the Cowboys or the Chargers have been really poor in run defense, and they just smashed them with the run and just running relentlessly off of Zach Martin's butt. I think that the coaching has been – this is what I expected from the coaching last year. But I think that there were some speed bumps between Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore in year 1. And obviously they had all the injuries, especially on the offensive line. But I mean, the coaching has been excellent in Dallas so far. And I'm optimistic about pretty much every member of this offense. I do think, though, if you need roster space, which most people are already starting to need roster space, I'd consider dropping Michael Gallup right now. He's going to miss 2 to 4 more weeks. And this is going to be the CeeDee Lamb show.
Yeah. Interesting game Monday night, Dallas and the Eagles. I think that'll be a really good one. Let's go to Detroit. Everybody watched the game, I'm sure, on Monday night. Jared Goff can move the ball. Like, it's possible. He's not like drawing dead to move the ball. And I kind of feel bad for him. I mean, without Tyrell Williams out there, I mean, what they were putting out there at wide receiver is absolutely humiliating. He did have a really nice touchdown pass to TJ Hawkinson, who continues to be the number one target. What'd you see out of Detroit last night in their loss to the Packers?
Yeah, everything that you could have expected to happen for TJ Hawkinson has happened so far. The weakness at wide receiver, and he's just been dominating targets in the middle of the field. He's the number 3 overall fantasy tight end behind only Travis Kelce and your boy Rob Gronkowski.
Oh, no.
And I expect that to continue. I mean, this is, TJ Hawkinson, motherfucking Mackey Award winner. I expect him to keep it up. We heard about the positive reports about his chemistry with Jared Goff in training camp, and it has bled into the regular season.
Green Bay Packers in that game, as expected, it was so obvious that area was a really good spot for Aaron Jones. I mean, how many guys in the NFL can go out there and catch 6 balls in a game and also score 4 touchdowns and get all the goal line work? Like, Aaron Jones is an awesome. The
answer is him and Alvin Kamara and like maybe McCaffrey, and like that's it.
Yeah. I mean, Aaron Jones is such an awesome player. Obviously, in week 1, it was a dreadful game for the Packers. They got back on track in a big way. Devontae Adams had the 50-yard catch, 8-1-21-0 for him, but Aaron Jones was the story. What did you see out of the Packers?
Yeah, I mean, just the perfect get-right spot, and that's exactly what they did. Whereas Tony Pollard has carved out standalone value, I'm a little bit skeptical right now that A.J. Dillon is going to be able to do that. Did you see during the game, it looked like Aaron Rodgers gave him the stink eye at one point. That's never a good look.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you see A.J. Dillon running off the field. But yeah, I mean, Aaron Jones, people were worried about him after week 1. He's now the number 3 overall fantasy running back behind only Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey. So don't need to worry about that. He looked phenomenal. I mean, Aaron Jones is a hell of a player.
Unreal. I do want to note that I mentioned the air yards by low model is coming up. Marquez Valdez-Scantling has 12 targets this season. He's turned 12 targets into 3 catches for 18 yards. Looks a lot like prayer yards out there for MVS rather than air yards.
There were 2 plays on Monday night where he had a step or 2 on the defender, and you never know. Did Rodgers just overthrow him a little bit, or did he not track it well enough? It's hard to say, but there were 2 big time opportunities. I'm sure that pained Dink to be watching his boy out there missing those opportunities.
Los Angeles Rams, I wanted to note the Darrell Henderson injury because Darrell Henderson has this outrageous one. Darrell Henderson was playing every snap in week 1 until the blowout, then was playing every snap in week 2 until he hurt his rib. Doesn't sound like it's overly serious. I don't know, though. I consider him very questionable for week 3. I think Sony Michel will come in and do a fine job if called upon. The Cooper Kupp stuff, though, dude, 37.5% target share through 2 weeks. I mean, Deshaun Jackson and Tutu Atwell aren't even playing. The running back target rate is kind of low. So, I mean, you have Cooper Kupp out there playing on every snap with Van Jefferson and Robert Woods, and he's got something going on with Matthew Stafford. People have tweeted at me that it's the breakfast narrative. These guys eat breakfast together every day, and therefore Cooper Kupp's target share is 37.5%. Listen, Evan, the way that I lost on Sunday, I didn't play Cooper Kupp. A lot of other people did, and that was the difference. If you were here, would you have implored me to play Cooper Kupp, and how much does Drew Silva owe me? I mean, Drew Silva probably owes me at least half a Kia right now, I would say.
Yeah, I feel that. I don't know. I switching the focus back to the running game. This is what the Rams feared with Darrell Henderson, that he just cannot hold up under a big workload, and it doesn't have to be an ACL tear, an Achilles injury, or it can be nicks, that knock him out for the game. Sony Michel's knee. Sony Michel looked good off the bench. He looked good all last season. And in a small sample, I think he had 60, 80 carries, something like that. But he really played well. He looked good. The reports were really strong about him in Patriots camp before he got traded, but his knees he's a bad bet to hold up too. So I think that right now the answer is to stash Jake Funk, who was a very limited running back in college. He played linebacker in college, but he's a big time athlete. I mean, he's like 90th percentile spark athlete, something like that. And I think that he is an excellent stash right now. He probably should be rostered in all leagues. Tyler Higbee 1 for 8, but he played 100% of the snaps. So I'm not panicking on him. I would be trotting him out with confidence here in week 3 against Tampa.
Oh, yeah. The Higbee stuff was really rough for both the season long and DFS. Minnesota Vikings. KJ Osborne again, man. Like, KJ Osborne just comes from I thought he was on the bubble to make the team. And we played him in preseason a couple of times because we thought he'd play a lot because he was trying to make the team. And now in the regular season, he's got an 18% target share while running around on 90% of Kirk Cousins' dropbacks. That was obviously a very wild game against the Cardinals. They're not all going to be like that, but this Minnesota defense may not be very good yet again. What do you think about Osborne and anything else on the Vikings?
Yeah, I mean, it's surprising. And, I have priors, anti KJ Osborne priors that, I'm still trying to work through. This guy was a 2020 5th round pick. He played at University of Buffalo, and he finished his career at Miami. He returned kicks and punts throughout his college career. And he wasn't like a dynamic kickoff and punt returner, but we do like to see that on a guy's profile. He ran 4.48 at 5'11", 203. I mean, he can play a little bit, and we've seen that. I don't know. I'm going to have a tough time trying to, fire up KJ Osborne anywhere unless, I'm in a particularly deep league. I don't know about the reliability, but he stepped up. They're an 11 personnel team at this point, not a 2 tight end team as they have been in the past. And that means that he's going to be seeing the field pretty consistently.
Well, that was going to be my main point, is that KJ Osborne has 15 targets through 2 games. In other words, it's not as concentrated to Jefferson and Thielen anymore, and they've had plenty of targets, and they're going to get theirs. But part of the appeal of Jefferson and Thielen was that they were running all the routes in the 2 wide receiver sets, and their target per route run was going to be so high. You mix KJ Osborne in for 15 targets, it's not as good. I think that's something to monitor. Saints. We talked about this, in the preseason. There's a chance that their offense can just crater, right? Because they're really lacking talent outside of Alvin Kamara on offense and the offensive line, obviously. And that's what happened. They go to Carolina and the offense just absolutely craters. Marquez Callaway has run 47 routes on 51 Jameis dropbacks this year. He's caught 3 balls for 22 yards and no touchdowns. I think you're going to have games like this. I don't want to say consistently, but a reasonable amount of the time on the Saints. They just have absolutely stone cold no talent on offense. What do you see out of them? I assume Marquez Callaway is a pretty safe drop right now.
Yeah, he's still the fact of the matter, they ran 43 offensive plays in week 2. The Panthers, who they lost to, and we were on that, they ran 73, 30 more offensive plays than the Saints. So I think that we're going to see the Saints' number of offensive plays run certainly positively grasp back to the mean. But I think that, the week, what happened in week 1, it was a total mirage. It was Sean Payton, having the masterpiece schematic game in week 1. And then they kind of snap back to reality in week 2. And, you're talking about an offense that is dotted with undrafted players at virtually all the skill positions outside of Alvin Kamara. So they have a legitimate talent issue. They still have a very good offensive line, but they have a legitimate talent issue at the skill positions, and that's going to hurt them. And, how long is Sean Payton going to give Jameis Winston in terms of his leash until he goes to Taysom Hill? I think we can already start talking about when is Taysom Hill going to start. And here we are in week 2 after Winston has a 2-pick, 4-sack game on 26 dropbacks.
Yep. New York Giants. I'm sure you guys who were watching the game, you saw Kenny Golladay. It looked like he was screaming at Daniel Jones on the sideline. And then he gets in front of the media, and Kenny Golladay doesn't say, "Oh, no, it was just a misunderstanding." Kenny Golladay says, "No, actually, I was yelling at Jason Garrett," which was amazing. I mean, it's just, he could have just said, no, I don't want to talk about it. He said, no, I wasn't yelling at Daniel. I was yelling at Jason Garrett, which is awesome because we know Jason Garrett is just an absolute dunce. One thing I thought, people want to call Saquon's injury the issue. I don't think Saquon's injury is the issue at all. I thought he's looked fine. He played 58 out of 69 snaps on a short week. He's played the Broncos and the Washington football team, two pretty tough defenses. The issue with Saquon is what it's been for the last couple of years with this offensive line, with this Jason Garrett scheme. There's no consistency. He gets like negative, 1 yard, 0 yards, negative. And then he needs to like create a 60-yard touchdown, which he certainly can. And I think he will. Now on a long week, gets Atlanta, New Orleans, Dallas the next few weeks. I'm optimistic Saquon's going to have more chances to break one of those long runs. I'm not saying I would trade for Saquon or anything like that, but like I'm certainly not selling him right now with these matchups coming up and his knee looking fine and a long week. What do you think on Saquon and anything on the Giants?
Yeah, I mean, Saquon has always run like that, though. I mean, he did that at Penn State. He's just a classic boomer bust runner. He's not a chain-moving sustainer who gets 4, 5, and 6 yard gains. Like he's going to have a lot of runs for 1, 2, 0, -2, and then your hope is that he breaks a couple of long ones. That can be detrimental to an offense because, the offense doesn't stay on schedule. You hand it to him on 1st and 10, he loses 2, all of a sudden now you're in 2nd and long, and then they try to hand it to him again, being Jason Garrett, and now you're in 3rd and 14, like it can be truly detrimental to an offense. But I agree with you on his health. It doesn't seem like the Giants are very concerned about his health either, because he was a true every down back against Washington on a short week. So, the question now becomes, do we buy low on Saquon Barkley? And I think that the answer is yes. Daniel Jones he's been fine. I mean, he has not been the problem with the Giants offense. The offensive line is not going to get any better. They just lost Nick Gates, arguably their best offensive lineman, to a broken leg on Thursday night. But, at the same time, like Saquon has this ability to break these long runs. Weeks 3 through 9 schedule looks pretty nice for Saquon Barkley. Falcons, Saints, Cowboys, Rams, Panthers, Chiefs, Raiders. So not too many big obstacles there for Saquon. He's going to be coming off 10 days rest. I think he's a buy low for sure.
Okay, let's go to the Eagles. Eagles did not play as poorly as it seemed. Jalen Hurts' ADOT continues to be extremely low, but they got down to the red zone, had some turnovers. I didn't think they were as bad as it seemed. I think it is bad, though, for Dallas Goedert. Jalen Hurts dropped back 30 times. Goddard only 16 routes. Zach Ertz 18 routes. In other words, this is mostly an 11 personnel team. I would note Zach Ertz is now on the COVID list. Not sure if he'll get cleared for Monday. That would be a huge boost for Dallas Goedert if Ertz can't play. And a couple of really bad injuries I wanted to note for the Eagles that are maybe under the radar. Brandon Graham, really good edge rusher, is done for the year. And guard Brandon Brooks, not done for the year, but is going to be on short-term IR. And we've talked about how the Eagles have kind of crumbled over offensive line injuries. They do have Landon Dickerson this year who can go in. We'll see what Brandon Thorne thinks about that, but certainly not good losing Brandon Brooks and Brandon Graham in this game. What did you see out of the Eagles?
Yeah, I think it was Ross Tucker or Brian Baldinger, one of those guys who was talking about how they were really impressed with how Landon Dickerson played after he entered in place of Brandon Brooks. And Landon Dickerson was a stud in college. He just had a bunch of injuries, but it looks like he's healthy now. And, that's an example of the Eagles' depth on the offensive line. So still feeling really good about that unit. I remember seeing in the preseason some strange tweets about how dual threat quarterbacks had become like overvalued in fantasy. And I mean, here's a testament against that. Jalen Hurts did not play really well, as a passer. He did very little as a passer in week 2 against San Francisco. He was still the overall quarterback 10 on the week because of how valuable rushing stats are for quarterbacks. I mean, he has a high floor and a high ceiling because of his rushing production, and you're just starting him every week. Now, when he has these games where he struggles as a passer, and it's going to happen, here and there, like that's really going to hurt Devontae Smith and, Jalen Reagor. And I think that that's going to cause them consistency problems. But there's no consistency problem with Jalen Hurts, he is an every week fantasy starter.
Oh, yeah. Totally agree. Such a beast. San Francisco. Oh, another thing on the Eagles I wanted to mention is that the week 1 running back usage stuck. Boston Scott has still played 0 snaps this season. Kenny Gainwell is playing a ton. Let's go to San Francisco, and Brandon Ayuk started the game. And Brandon Ayuk actually ran 8 more routes than Trent Sherfield. Jimmy G dropped back 33 times, 20 routes for Ayuk, 28 for Debo. Most of the new 17, Trent Sherfield 12. So, I wouldn't feel comfortable starting Ayuk yet, but he's at least getting back in the mix. The running back situation, though, my God, they lost Trey Sermon to a concussion, Eli Mitchell to a shoulder injury, Jermichael Hasty to an ankle injury, all in this game. All are questionable for week 3. They have signed Jacques Patrick. Shout out to the XFL. They have Kerryon Johnson, he of the knee braces, on their practice squad. And they have Trent Cannon, longtime special teamer, available also. I mean, it's a stone cold mess right now in their backfield. What'd you see out of San Francisco? Pretty good win for them. I mean, I thought Philadelphia was going to win the game for sure.
Yeah, we're doing this in the early afternoon on Tuesday, and my initial impression was so obviously things could change, but my initial impression was that Elijah Mitchell would be good to go. Sermon obviously in the concussion protocol, Jermichael Hasty high ankle sprain out indefinitely, but it sounded like Elijah Mitchell avoided a significant injury, and in that case, I mean, I think that he could get potentially like a full workload against Green Bay. I wanted to just note about the 49ers upcoming schedule. They got the Packers. I already took the over on 48.5 in that game, 49ers Packers. Then Seattle and Arizona, 3 potential shootouts all in a row. I think that bodes well for, especially George Kittle, who, I mean, he ran 30 routes last week, played 100% of the snaps, was not productive in the box score. But I would remain optimistic about him. I know people get worried about the early round picks when they don't produce in the first 2 games. It's natural, but he's going to have an eruption game here. I would predict maybe 2 within the upcoming 3 weeks. 0 snaps for Trey Lance. And, this was our fear entering the season, that the 49ers would just start racking up wins against this soft schedule. And maybe they'd stick with Garoppolo. And that's what it looks like they're going to do, at least for now. Now that could switch at any moment, but that's the continued fear that Trey Lance just doesn't get in there as long as the 49ers are winning.
Yep. Seattle. Targets between Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are dead even this year, 16 each. Tyler Lockett has been way more productive, and I think that's going to kind of swing around back and forth all throughout the year. But Tyler Lockett's been making huge plays. I mean, Russ threw this like cross body all the way across the field, and Lockett somehow gets 2 defenders to run into each other, runs into the end zone. Lockett also had the bomb in week 1. Metcalf just hasn't had that happen for him yet. Not worried about DK Metcalf at all. I would note Freddie Swaim came in for D. Eskridge and had a big game. I mean, caught all 5 of his targets, caught a bomb. Also, what you see out of the Seahawks, who I did choke that game away. I mean, they had a big lead in that game against the Titans.
Just see Tyler Lockett being undervalued for the 4th year in a row. As his final high stakes ADP, I think, was like around wide receiver 20. He's the number 2 overall fantasy receiver through 2 weeks. So shout out to us for being high on Tyler Lockett again. Easy game.
Speaking of easy game, Evan, Tom Brady, I mean, one of the league's best offensive lines, maybe the NFL's best 3 wide receiver set. Gronk has found the fountain of youth. Tom Brady has 9 touchdowns in 2 games. It's absolutely sickening what's happening right now with Rob Gronkowski. Rob Gronkowski did only catch 4 balls for 39 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. 2 touchdowns in 3 straight games. No.
I know. God. I don't know. I don't have a lot to say here other than like the offense legit, even though they have like such bad running backs, their offense pass game looks legit unstoppable. Anything on Tampa?
How do they stay so healthy? They like never have injuries. I mean, they were the number 1 healthiest team in the league last year. They're healthy again this year. I know they lost the slot corner, Murphy Bunting, but other than that, I mean, can we say it together? Ronald Jones.
It's enough
already. All right. Can we say it together? Enough already.
Yeah. Okay? When you weren't here on Friday night, Leone subbed in on the Friday night show, and and he tried to bring up Ronald Jones. I asked, does anybody else want to say any other running backs before we move on to wide receiver? And Leone got like 5 seconds into Ronald Jones' take, and I just cut him off and moved on to wide receiver.
Oh, that's great. I got to go back and watch.
Okay. Washington football team, last team we're going to do here today. You know, I kind of thought that Taylor Heineke wouldn't be that much worse than Ryan Fitzpatrick, if worse at all. And on Thursday night, I thought he played pretty well. Like, I don't think we should really be downgrading the football team at all with Taylor Heineke in there. Dude can play a little bit. De'Ami Brown, you know, not doing it in the box score at 47 routes on 50 Heineke dropbacks in that game. I would keep the light on for him. At least anything on the Washington football team's kind of weird win on Thursday night.
Heineke, I mean, his numbers now, you know, he's starting to accumulate. He's made 4 appearances over the past 2 seasons, including this one, obviously, 2 starts. He's thrown for over 300 yards in both of the starts, and his numbers look really good across the board. He can run. I mean, we're not downgrading any Washington players. I made the mistake of moving McLaurin down a little bit from like a fringe wide receiver 1-2 to like a wide receiver 2-3 in ahead of that Giants game. And he whipped up on James Bradbury. I mean, McLaurin is such a baller, and Heineke will absolutely feed him volume. So feeling good about all those guys. I wonder if the Washington, J.D. McKissic had a big game that had to be tilting for Antonio Gibson drafters, but I wonder if they limited him, or at least they game planned J.D. McKissic a little bit more because it was a short week, and Gibson had that shoulder thing coming out of week 1. Now they're going to be on long rest and everything will be okay. But I was just looking for an explanation there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an explanation either, other than they think J.D. McKissic can clearly play, especially on pass downs, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, he's right there with James White and Nyheim Hines as guys that you're looking at in PPR leagues as a flex option every week.
That's going to do it for this NFC team by team week 2. Look back, week 3. Look ahead. Again, if you do not have the in-season package yet, if you're not subscribed to this podcast yet, be sure you handle both of those. For Producer Luke, for Evan, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.